Morton is absolutely fabulous at helping people to work out what their pricing should be based on their value and helping them to see what their value should be. He's worked with multiple clients over the years, helping them to restructure from the hourly rate to this package rate and to re-articulate that value so people just to say yes to the price that are offering. So I will let Morton dazzle you with his expertise.
Ooh, dazzle. Ooh, okay.
Dazzle. It's just
Hi everyone. I think Nami's right in the sense that I'll just do a quick talk about this and open it up to discussion. Anyone who wants to talk about it, to have any questions. I will never forget. It was a few days before Christmas, and it's interesting that I'm doing this now, and this is a Christmas story. I'll never forget it. A few days before Christmas, many years ago, and I had very little money at the time, and I was on my way to a client. And deep down, I was really upset and annoyed with myself, mainly for putting myself once again in this position. So I arrived at the meeting, present, but not really present, because I was hoping by osmosis that they would remember to pay me by the end of the session. I didn't care if they were going to pay by cash or check. I just wanted to make sure that I was paid. So have you ever been in a position where you are there and you're working with a client and either the invoice is outstanding or primarily that you're expecting to pay, but the problem is, it isn't the client, it is you. You haven't had that conversation about your fees, or you have, but you struggle with having that conversation about, are you ready to pay? Have you paid? When are you going to settle? And at Christmas, when the meeting ended, I'm there, I'm present, but I'm not really present. When the meeting ended and they said, oh, we're gonna go away for Christmas as a family. I'm thinking, oh, lucky you. We're gonna go away for Christmas. And I said, have a great time. And as I was leaving, I felt sick inside of my stomach because I was expecting to be paid and I wasn't. I was so annoyed with myself. And believe you me, it didn't lead to a great Christmas, because here's what happened. That year, my mom wasn't well, and we decided that we would all collectively come together and bring a dish. And I said I would bring a nice big turkey. Anyway, it was for about 8 to 10 of us. Because of that, and I hadn't been paid by several clients at the time, right? The size of the turkey that I brought wasn't actually able to feed 8 to 10 people. It probably could have fed probably 3 or 4. But that was because I went shopping and I thought, I can't afford to buy what I really wanted to buy. The problem there was about how I'd managed that relationship with that client. The problem there was how I'd managed the fee structure with the client. And so I started to go on a journey with that real frustration in myself to realize that I had to do something different. It was that serious, because when I got to Christmas Day with the family, they were so upset and so annoyed with me. It took me years to live down the shame of, oh my gosh, look at what you brought. Is this what you brought for all of us? But that was how it was that day. Anyway, I decided to go and get some help. And I started to read some books and ask myself, why is it that when I end up in front of a client, I'm really offering a discount really quickly? I'm afraid to ask for the fee that I really want to ask for. I make up the most stories. They can't afford to pay. I've seen their accounts. They haven't got much money. I'm going to go in cheap at the minute. And then later on, I will raise my fees. Does this sound familiar to any of you, the typical stories that we tell ourselves before we present our proposal or before we discuss fees with the client? We make the decision of what we think they can afford to pay. And by that time, after that embarrassing Christmas, I decided that it was time for me to do something different. So I got some mentoring and I got some coaching and I read some books. And I created what is now called the Know Your Value framework, which is helping clients to raise their fees, to feel more confident about the service they're offering without getting resistance from their clients. And that is one of the key things, is really about helping them to improve their confidence, not only in themselves, but actually their awareness of the difference that they're making, how to articulate it, how to identify it, and therefore the conversation that they were having with clients. I'll tell you a story. I had a client where a couple of years ago, they'd asked me to do some coaching for them, with their senior manager as well as the directors. And she came back to me and she said to me, I present options because what I strongly advocate that people do whenever you're submitting a proposal. Don't just offer just one price, but offer several options for them to choose from, which then proves to be a choice, what I call of yeses. She came back to me and she said, one of the senior managers are leaving, so we need to review, the options that we've chosen. And I said, okay, but give me a couple of days and then I'm going to come back to you. It gave me the time to think about what I wanted to do. And this is the challenge that many small business owners and independent practitioners have. You instantly look to reducing your fee the moment there's a reaction by the client. You instantly think that, oh my God, I need to discount this because of what they've said to you. And you make up a judgment. And part of this is because you do not recognize the difference that you make. You don't recognize the impact of the work that you're doing. When we had the meeting again, I said to her, what is it that you're expecting us to be doing going forward? She said, this, and this, and we reviewed the proposal again. I decided that I wasn't going to reduce my fee. And I said to her, which is what I proposed to you, that sometimes clients are looking for you to lead them. I said, I don't think you should reduce this. Here's why. And I went quiet. And she says, okay, and we continued. So the point I'm making is that previously, when I was doing that stuff, working with the client who didn't pay me at Christmas, previously, I would have accepted the lower option. But I got to a stage where now I am prepared to discuss, what is it that you're looking to do? Here is how we're going to do it. This is the process. This is the purpose of doing it. And this is how you're going to benefit. Because primarily clients buy the result. They do not buy the methodology you're going to use. They don't buy the application you're going to use. They don't buy how long it's going to take. What they buy is the dream that you are giving the future, the feeling that what they're going to be able to do in the future is different to what they have now. That is what they buy from you. And that is your value. Your value is getting really clear on how you could actually influence, impact that difference. So the Know Your Value framework comes in, and you're interested, I'd be happy to talk to anybody who wants to find out more about it today. Comes in this way. One of them is the most important things, which is understanding the avatar. What is the psychological needs of your clients? What do they look like? It isn't just about age and income. It's more than that. It's creating an absolutely clear avatar. I was having a chat with a client last night who was in recruitment. And I said to her, are you really clear beyond just simply the value proposition? Are you really clear on who your ideal clients are? So one of the things with the framework is looking at what is the client, the ideal client, and the problems that you're solving for them. The second bit is getting really clear on your package. What are you going to offer as the different service propositions? I call this, you look at the first offer. What is the process involved in solving that, in delivering that first offer? What is the purpose of it and how will they benefit? And looking at every single service that you have and looking at the process, the purpose, and the outcome. Another part of the framework is the selling conversation. What I think and what I've experienced many times that people have, the challenge they have is they do not construct the conversation where the client is able to really talk about their needs and the challenges. What they do is they go in to talk about their services. It's important that when you sit in front of a client, you are asking three main questions. What is the value of this? Well, how will it help you? What kind of a difference will it make? How will we measure that the work that we're doing together is going to make a difference? And what is the objective? Enough times I'm finding when I'm working with clients is they do not spend enough time in that process. And I've just written an article on LinkedIn on why proposals quite often can be awfully written. And that is because the initial selling conversation, people are not having it. They're not having it in a constructive way. So the framework is really around your avatar, the selling conversation, the package that you create, which therefore defines the different services that you offer and the prices that you will give with it. I think, and from my experience, when you structure your offer that way, you're able to then increase your prices with less resistance from your clients. So what I want to do right now is to just open it up to any conversation or any questions that anybody might have regarding, the selling conversation, regarding choosing the right price, regarding packaging your services. If there's anything that's unclear that you think that you'd like to ask.
Thank you, Morton. All right. I'm sure we got a ton of questions. Angela, do you have a question?
Thank you, Morton. I thought how you expressed that was really clear. And I think that is very true. It's true for me that that there will be some companies that, even though they have a very, they have resilience and have high income, are not prepared to wish to pay the amount. So I have a situation right at this moment with a company that is very well known, and they have a budget and they don't want to exceed that budget. And your idea about how to, but what they want is more than they had before, because I've worked with them before, 4 or 5 years ago. And the CEO said that if he had taken two of the aspects that I had sat down with him and said were Achilles' heel, that would have saved him millions of pounds, because they had a major issue as a result of that. So, but they have very, very tight budgets, and they don't leak from one budget to the other. So what you've given for me as a thought, because I'm doing this today, this afternoon, so it's very timely. What you've given me is a thought that if I can really turn it and really show what this work will deliver, and not to see it as just simply, in my case, training or understanding of decision making and understanding of an element of the flow, but actually really fundamentally supporting the essence of the business that will prevent these major cost leakages that have occurred in the past.
Right. Here's what I want to say, Angela. Okay, because we've spoken several times. You're very good at what you do. This reminds me of a situation several years ago I had with a client where I submitted a proposal. And this is one of those good times where she came back really quickly. And she said to me, Morton, I can't afford the full package at the price that you've quoted. And I said, that's fine. So she said, but I said to her, let's have a meeting. So I went, those were the days where you could just jump in the train, and we sat down together. And she said, we looked at the training program, and she says, I cannot afford this. And I said to myself, okay, let's do this creatively. So I said to her, let me present this to you. I'd like you to tell me the ones that you don't think is important for the budget that you can afford. And I got her to choose what she wanted to remove. That's one part of it. And she then chose it, and we were able to agree, and I delivered the training and so on. One of the things I think you might want to think about, Angela, is the conversation you're having around what will it do for them after you have done your work. So I'm coming in, I'm going to help you with the decision making, and it's going to have this kind of impact. What do you think that will cost you? What will it cost you if you don't do anything? I understand that this is your budget, but what could we do within this budget that will meet the needs that you have, because you can't have everything at the price that I have quoted. What do you think we need to kind of streamline this? So part of it is you standing firm in your offer. And the other thing is getting them to choose what's not important. And you'll see if they're really committed to the budget that they've set. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, it does. It really does. Yeah. The CEO is very aware of how important it is. Yeah. So I think you're right about actually creating the clarity of, if this doesn't happen, these are the costs that will incur. You've already had experience of that with a different set in the management team, but there will be others that will be very similar to that. Yeah, thank you, Morton. Yeah, very helpful. Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome.
Cool. So we're going to go with hands up situation. Have you got the proper hands up, Natalie, there?
Yeah, real hand.
For a while. So we're going to go Robert and Nikki, and then Natalie's going to put a proper hand up. Well, it wasn't a hand, but yeah, just do the raise hand thing, and because it lines you up in order, you see on my screen then. So unless you have something to say directly back to Angela then, Natalie. Or was it?
No, it was more or less that I have worked with Morton, and it's true, and I went through the process, and in the beginning I lost a lot of clients, so they balked at the change. But what I've noticed is that because I stayed firm in what Morton coached me through, they're starting to come back. Wow. And that has been, it's been a hard few months of them having to suffer without. But in that process, it kind of changed the goalpost for me, even though I'm like, oh, but I stayed firm. And so the few that have come back, the word has got out. It's like, that's the deal.
Wonderful.
Wow. Take it or leave it.
Powerful.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to hear. Really pleased to hear that, Natalie. Excellent.
Thank you, Morton.
Yeah, it's really about standing your ground for your own self-worth and setting that standard in life, isn't it? Like, yeah. Sometimes you've got to cut things off to get the new. So, yeah.
And quite often we make up the story about what we think the client can do, and therefore we decide for them instead of them making the decision themselves. And you have to stand in your own. Otherwise, the moment they see you go like this, they're going to say, okay, you know, they're going to take advantage. You have to stand in and be able to evidence it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Morton, maybe you can help me with this audio. So when in some of my work, I deal with corporations. If I'm dealing with top level decision makers, your approach is great because they'll understand it and they issue the edict, go do it, right? Often I'm dealing with a second tier who then, after they kind of say they want this, then their procurement group gets involved and says, no, we need to shop this, we need to, you know, value engineer it. And they're very interested in, you know, very narrow, short-term thing. And they're looking for, well, who can do this cheaper? They don't care if they do it as well, right? You have a strategy for dealing with that kind of situation?
It's common, and let me make sure that I'm clear on what you're asking, which is basically, you're working with, let's just say, a functional head, but he has to go through the procurement team, and the procurement team are procurement people.
Yeah.
They're procurement people, and so they're only looking at it at probably, you know, the cheapest that should come in, and how could you deal with it? I think one of the things is you can't sell it to the procurement team. You have to sell the outcome to that person that you're having the conversation with. Okay, because unless the question I have is, do they have a budgetary responsibility that possibly you could work within, that they don't need to go to the procurement team? Or is it that the procurement team makes all of the decisions? That's a question.
Well, there's a couple scenarios, but often once they cross certain budget amounts, even if they have the budget, they then have to go through the procurement process for things that are above certain dollar amounts.
Right. Okay. What I'd suggest you think about is look at what is it that they're looking to achieve, okay? And explain the process and the purpose and how they will benefit. And within that budget, what you're probably offering is probably beyond what the budget that they have. So see if there's a creative way in which you could split that up without it having to go through the procurement team where the difference is. I would suggest, and I'd like to say, think if I was in your position, I'd get them so involved in how much better off they're going to be and what the department, the head or whatever is going to be benefit, and get them to sell it, but also to create that solution, which is, it might be that you break this project up in different ways within their budgetary responsibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You don't have to go to someone else. Have that conversation. Here is what you're looking to do. These are the steps involved. Here is why, as we've had this conversation, here's why you've said we're doing it. Here is how you're going to benefit. And imagine that what that would be like once you've done it. What would that make you look like? What would the team do? How much would you save? That kind of stuff. Have that conversation with them in real detail. How could we work this so that it doesn't need to go through there? Because these are my fees. And a part of it will be you standing firm in your fees, because your negotiation shouldn't be with the procurement people, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, to the degree, I mean, again, I hit the issue that they'll use a cumulative amount, per supplier. Oddly, the hardest ones, the UK companies are the hardest because they have a delegation of authority guidelines that come right down from the top, and they're more firm. I can get sole source letters in the US a lot, but all right. No, that's a good. Thanks for the approach. I was hoping you'd have a magic wand for me.
No,
thank you.
Not even though Christmas.
Yeah. I need my reindeer.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, should I go next?
Hi, Nikki.
Hiya. So my question is about budget. But what I find, some people are really, when you ask them how much they've got to, what their budget is for a project, some people are, they're very open about it, and other people, immediately you can see them going, well, you're going to sell me to exactly that number, and so I sometimes struggle to get them to share what the actual budget is, and then you're flying blind. Do you have any tips for getting budget numbers out of people who are reluctant to share?
Well, firstly, I think it's great that you're having the budget conversation. Quite often people don't ask, do you have a budget? Yeah. This may be an opportunity for, if you're clear on the service that you're offering, instead of, if they're reluctant to do so, is to give them a range, to say, okay, I'm just, to do those jumpers that you've got, your Christmas jumpers, okay. To do 5 jumpers is going to cost you in the range of 10 to 15 pounds, okay? Is that within your budget? As opposed to, it's going to cost 10 pounds, yeah? So give them a range that you could work with that's really high and probably the middle and lower, and then see, as opposed to them committing to a budget. That's one of the things I would do is, if they say, if they choose to give you a budget, you can say, okay, just as a rough idea, then I would say you look at presenting a series of options for them to choose from. Yes. But one of the ways in which you could overcome that is you need to be really clear on how they're going to benefit at the end of it. You need to be really clear on the process involved and why you're doing it for them, and what, why you're doing that particular topic, the outcome, and then say, right, typically this costs between this and that amount. Is that within your budget? And then you can have that conversation. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Right. Right. Can't hear you, Naomi.
I'm on mute, yes. Thank you, Morton. Has anyone got else got any questions? BJ, you're not on mute. Are you poised to ask a question there?
Yeah, no, I have a question. Morton, you see, I used to run companies in the IT services business, And particularly when it was large projects, that, several hundreds of thousands of pounds kinds of projects for delivery, they always had almost, the UK companies particularly had competitive bids from all kinds of companies, even 7, 5, 10, incredible numbers sometimes. And then they would select maybe 3 in the shortlist and then further. And very often they would ask for a proof of concept. And in the IT world, when you say proof of concept, you actually have to deliver a certain solution, small one maybe. However, it's not a trivial one, but something important, but a small one. And that costs money. And what used to happen was the large players could afford that, not the smaller players. So it was always a problem. And what I'm getting at is, so having done that, you have come up to that stage, you have maybe even delivered a proof of concept, and then it comes to the pricing. And particularly UK companies have been in the past very, very tough. And, someone just said that, Robert just said that how he sees that UK companies are tougher. It's a fact. I've always felt that US companies' decision making much, much faster, go straight to the top maybe, and he'll say yes or no, and that's it. It's better. They don't waste people's time, unlike in the UK, and particularly in the IT industry. So point is that how do you then cope with this kind of situation? You give a price, and then they want to negotiate very often, even they like you, and you don't know who else they've called in the last 3. You are in that, you've worked a lot, and you are in those final 3, and you're really desperate to get that order. So how do you cope with such a situation?
Yeah. That's a good Christmas question. Put me on my toes. I used to work in IT several years, many years ago. Okay. And I understand the whole thing around a proof of concept. And I think you are right in terms of the time it can take. And you actually have no idea whether you're going to get the business or not. How I tend to approach it now is this. It's getting really, really clear on, is this the kind of business and client that you want to work with and for? That will then reduce the number of, let's just say, submissions or RFP or RPQs or whatever you submit. So how I would like to suggest that you think about it, which you probably have already considered, and you're just looking to see whether I have a different view, is one to say, do we really want to be working with this kind of client for a start? 2 is, I don't know if within the way you're submitting the work, whether you can produce a series of options. Staying firm on your pricing structure is about you and not the company, because whether it's a delusion to think that you're going to go in and you'll be able to negotiate up, because it never happens. Yeah. So first thing I would probably do is think about, is this our core business, and is this a business that we're going to really make the kind of money and deliver the really kind of service that we want to be delivering? 2, is it possible that with some of them we could offer more than one pricing structure? 3, it would be really clear on your line, so that people will ask you to negotiate, but you don't have to if you choose not to. I tend to advise, and I tend to suggest is, the proof of concept is so time consuming, and there's no guarantee as to whether you really want to be doing that kind of work going forward, because you expend so much time and there's no guarantee.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And I like your approach that give them some options in the proposal itself, which I don't think many of us did that, So give them an option, because they define a problem, the problem. So sometimes you find it difficult, but you can, I suppose, you can. For example, in the maintenance part, what the maintenance fees would be after delivery, you can see how is it 24/7, or is it only Monday through Friday, and so on. So those kind of options can be useful. Anyway, thanks for your views very much, Morton. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Yeah, the selling conversation, depending on if you're really the type of buyer that you're sitting in, the selling conversation is so important. It's crucial, because that's where you build a relationship and they could see the added value that you could provide. Selling conversation.
And sometimes one can stay firm on the price. I suppose if you're the really good, you're given real value, then it's, but the only problem is, how do you cope with when they say, we would like to negotiate? You can't flatly say, I won't negotiate, So
No, I agree. You can't flatly say I won't negotiate, but this to me is where you sit down and you have that really detailed conversation of here is what we're going to be doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how you will benefit. Which one of these would you like us to not do within the price bracket that you're talking about? You know, quite often businesses want you to continue to give them the work and pay you very little anyway. And the point is, this really, at the end of the day, this really is about you sitting firm in your belief of how much of a difference, the value, the only thing I do about value is about when we have left, here's how much better off you will be. Okay, we will provide 24/7 service maintenance. Our guys will come and see you. You know, the SLA will be this way, but is it peace of mind? Are you going to reduce your costs? Is it going to, how much better off will they be? And you need to be selling that really confidently to sit firmly in your fees, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that can be used in my current role, which is the business and performance coaching. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks again, Morton.
You're welcome.
Okay, I've got a question, Morton. I've been working with a corporate for about 2 years now, and I was happy with my price until recently. A conversation has been coming up that actually corporates pay a huge amount of money. And now I'm starting to think, well, hang on, could I have charged them more? And if they want to continue, how can I find out that actually they would have paid more and actually start getting more money from them? Or do I just put the price up and see what happens?
Well, what's paid is paid. That's past.
Mm.
You know, and so you really just have to accept that. That's part of it.
I just think going forward, when they want more work, is it
Right?
Because if I knew that I could have charged more, then I guess that's why I'm hanging on to what was, because I actually would like to know if I could have done, because actually the regret turns into growth. But yeah, I'm interested to know, like, how would I navigate that conversation to find out so that I could put my price up in the future?
Right. The interesting thing is, how do I navigate it to see if I could put my price up?
Yeah.
If I could.
Yeah.
The point is, the first question is, do you want to?
Yeah.
You want to? Okay. Then what I would say you think about is look at outlining in great detail the process of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And why you're doing it and what the benefit will be to them once it's done. So this is probably around you creating, having a conversation, a face-to-face or a Zoom or whatever, having a conversation and going through, doing a review of what they will do and what else you're going to be doing and showing them why your price is going to be increasing. It isn't whether you could or whether you couldn't. If the fact is that they're choosing to pay someone else more, it might be, okay, there's a feeling they're getting from that corporation that you might not be giving them. It might have been they have access to more people, more expertise, a different range of expertise or whatever that's making them think, oh, we want to pay more. Or it might be how you have sold or been selling yourself that makes them think, oh, this is all Naomi wants. Yeah. So what I would do, I think I'd strongly suggest you think about looking at what you've been delivering, document, itemize, and listening, really looking at it, right? Making a note of it, having a conversation with them, see what the different options you can create from the service that you're offering, and increase your prices and show them how they will benefit by those increased options. This is about, to me, as we've spoken about this in the past, this is about, to me, oh, this is what else you could do, and this is what else we'll be able to do after you've done it. I didn't realize, and quite often they don't know that you could do different things or you could do more. Yeah. You know, so I think first and foremost, you might want to consider having that one-to-one with them and not saying, oh, you should have been paying me £15,000 more because you know I realize that you know they're not interested. No. Yeah, you know that's a lesson for you to learn. That's what I think. You know, but have that detailed conversation.